I have here on this pad not only the grand unifying theory of what's going on Disney Plus's Hawkeye, but I have also written a sample exchange between two characters that I think is how the show will actually choose to reveal that information to us. So I'm not gonna, there it is. You gotta watch the whole video if you wanna see it. I think I figured out Hawkeye, including a theory that I have not seen anyone else posit so far. I think it's kind of fun. I'm not expecting to spoil anything. I don't have any advanced knowledge of things that are going to happen or anything like that. This is just me, after episode 4, taking stock of all of the information we have, putting it together, seeing how the pieces fit together. Before I started this, I think I had most of the pieces. I think most of this made sense, but it didn't all make sense together. And I think after coming to one assumption at the end of episode 4, I can kind of see where it's going. So I want to share it with you, so I have it on the internet. So if I'm right, you guys can all say, congratulations, you're a prophet, like Doctor Strange does. And also just because, you know, I think it's interesting. I think it's fun to kind of work through stuff like this. And I could be completely wrong. I'm not going to take down the video. If I am, I don't care. It'll be a fun little thing. And I'll even put in parentheses afterwards, I was wrong. I haven't talked about Hawkeye yet. Not because I don't enjoy it either, just because I haven't had much to say. A lot of the parallels between the show and the comic are pretty obvious, and a lot of the characters have been fun. I've been enjoying them. I think I want to see them develop a little bit more, and I think we'll be able to talk about certain characters and their arcs after this series is finished. But until recently, I haven't had any theories. And I really enjoyed that about WandaVision and Loki, trying to put together some sort of grand unified what's actually happening theory. And yeah, Hawkeye is way less complicated than WandaVision or Loki, but I still think there is a mystery. It is at its heart a murder mystery show. So I want to try to figure out what that is now that we're about 2/3 of the way through. Also, want to get this out of the way. I enjoy Hawkeye. I think the show's fun. I think a lot of the action is pretty good. I like Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop. I'm a big fan of Kate Bishop, and I think she is definitely doing the character justice, to the point where I would like to see a spin-off of this show, or maybe like a second season of Hawkeye, even without Jeremy Renner, without Clint Barton, just Kate doing her own thing. I think that would be fun. And I enjoy a lot of the visuals of the show, especially the ones that pull from the 2008 Hawkeye run. Pei, David, Aja. There's some things about the show that I'm not quite loving. I think the editing's a little weird. I'm not as big a fan of the head-on framed conversations where it's just camera right in front of the character and we're cutting between those. There have been a couple of them I think they're a little weird. I also think, and not to nitpick, not unlike my podcast, mostly nitpicking, but that car chase was really fun. There is a really weird line read in there where Hawkeye pulls out the bow, is like, oh, you got to use trick arrows, and he starts like going through them out of the quiver. He says, not that one. That one's way too dangerous. But one of the lines he says is like,
trick arrows?
Definitely not this one.
But there's another version of that where he says it differently and it sounds way better.
Trick arrows?
Definitely not this one.
All right, you don't have to say definitely like that.
Definitely not this one.
You don't have to say definitely like that.
And I don't know why they didn't just use that as an ADR, because it's not like we really see his face saying it anyway. I don't know. But my biggest problem that I have with the show so far is the beginning of the series started with this murder, the murder of Armand. And we were very interested in that. Kate, as our POV character, was very interested, and that thrust all of the events of the show into motion. And once we got past episode 1 and once we got into episode 2, that didn't really seem to matter anymore. Like, in the world of the show, Kate suspects that Jack is the person that killed Armand, but like, she's not really doing anything about it. Like, she is doing her, you know, trying to fence him and stuff, and she's investigating it, but there doesn't feel like there's a real sense of urgency when it comes to that side of the plot line. All of the Echo and Hawkeye and Ronin stuff I think is very engaging, but I do think that that first plot line, the murder mystery, while I definitely think it's connected to everything, it just hasn't gotten the amount of like presence that I would expect from something like that. But like I said, I do think that is connected to the Roman plot line, and I got that information from something that happened in episode 4. If you don't mind, I'm going to grab my notes. I have a whole legal pad here with all my notes right now. So I've very much suspected from the beginning, and potential spoilers from here on out, that the mom is the main villain. Character named oh god, Eleanor. I very much suspected since the beginning of the show that Eleanor was the main villain, and I think we got 2 lines from her. There's that first bit where she gets on the phone and calls a mysterious figure and says like, we've got a problem, which just straight out of the This Guy is a Villain handbook. And then also there's the conversation she has with Hawkeye at the elevator where she kind of asks him to drop the case and he doesn't do that, but there's still like, you could tell she's like, damn it, I almost had him there. So the mom's bad. She's the missing link in this chain. But I do want to go through all of the characters, all of the items, all of the motivations, and try to put everything together. Real quick before we get into it, Yelena does not come up in this at all. Not because I don't think she's important, but I don't think she's connected to this plot line. I think her cameo in this show is just kind of like a coincidence, especially since what I thought she would contribute to the show is using that information that she got at the end of Black Widow and outing Clint Barton as Ronin, at least to Kate. And that would create a rift going into episode 5. But then, like, Kate figured it out in episode 4, so that's not important. But okay, so the mom's back. Let's talk about the mom. What's her deal? Here's what I think she's been up to. I feel like she's a criminal, right? She says that she came from nothing and she's very interested in like living this life of luxury. She has to spend a lot of money replacing all of the bell towers and clock towers that Kate is destroying. But here's my guess. I'm thinking that she's out of money. That tends to happen in stuff like this a lot. Like money starts the plot in motion and it's like, oh, this character gets a little desperate, so they're forced to do something. I think she got approached by the uncle, who is the boss, who I'm not even gonna name here, but let's say some big giant refrigerator of a man. And she gets approached by this guy and he's like, hey, I want you to work for me. And this may have been a little bit in the past, maybe even back during 2012 when the first Avengers movie was happening in that flashback. Like by then she may have been part of this. But so I think she does 2 jobs within the big boss's organization. First of all, I think she handles security because she has bishop security and that's important. But also she handles auctions. One of the things that we see in the first episode is she throws a big party and there is also a secret auction where they're auctioning off the skulls of dinosaurs for prices that were, you know, what the dinosaurs went for in Jurassic World 2, which I'm mostly nitpicking. We talked about just the prices you could buy a dinosaur for in that movie are so low. So she does these auctions and she can use that connection to get things that are important, which we'll see. But I also think she might just like be a money launderer. And maybe she is working for this big boss guy and she is dealing with all of his money. So she uses the auctions as a front to launder money. Maybe she also manages it and stuff like that. But I think that's the part she's played in this so far. Next character, Jack. So how does Jack factor into this? AKA the swordsman from the comics. Although like, I don't think he's that because in the comics, that guy trains Hawkeye and they're the same age and they don't seem to know each other. But okay, so he's a rich guy. He likes swords. I'm thinking potentially the mom got close to him for 2 reasons. The first one is this Armand thing that we'll get to, but like maybe there's a chance she thinks he is Ronin, right? Because all anybody knows is that Ronin is this guy who runs around with a mask, who seems to be about the same build and maybe age as Jack and primarily fights with a sword, which is like, that's pretty rare. So maybe she's trying to marry Jack to figure out if he's the Ronin. Now, I don't think he's really in anything. I feel like he is a red herring as there ever was. I think maybe he'll be useful later on, like maybe he'll fight her or something. Maybe they'll have a cool sword fight. Like maybe she's also great at swords and they, you know, have like a duel at some point. But I mean, the most important thing about Jack, he's going to inherit Armand's fortune. Now, who's Armand? I think it's his dad, maybe his uncle. It's another rich upper crust New York fella. Now, here's what we get from him. In the first episode, he is stabbed. Before that, he finds out something about Eleanor that he brings to her attention. And he also talks to Kate and he's like, I don't think your mom is a good person. And Kate's like, okay, this is a party, dude. But I mean, she doesn't know that her mom's engaged and also she doesn't know that her mom's a criminal. But I think that Armand knows that Jack is like kind of a dork and maybe isn't super bright when it comes to this stuff. So Armand did some digging, figured out that Eleanor is connected to the big boss. So he confronts her with that information. They kind of fight a little bit and Kate sees that. And it's funny because this is like a murder mystery show, right? And usually in the beginning of a murder mystery, something like that happens where there's like a confrontation that's public and a character gets all suspicious. Goes, what's that? Maybe that person did the murder. But there was no follow through on that. And not just like for Kate, because obviously Kate isn't going to suspect her mom, but not even like for us. Like we also kind of forgot about that. So I think he finds out about this, threatens to out her and threatens to tell Jack, confronts Eleanor. And she goes, whoop, well, we got to do one of 2 things. Either I am going to kill Armand myself, or I'm going to call the big boss and he's going to have someone like maybe some sort of deaf assassin woman. She's going to have them kill Armand. I don't think the difference really matters that much because overall what happens is Armand figures out what's going on. He gets killed. Next, let's talk about that deaf assassin woman. So Echo, what's her deal? So she is the big boss's niece. Her dad was killed by Ronin. Ronin killed a bunch of the big boss's dudes during the 5-year years between the snap and the blip. I've seen some theories that the person that killed her dad wasn't Ronin and like wasn't Hawkeye. It was somebody else using the Ronin costume, which like it's possible, but I don't think we've seen too much from Clint to suggest that that wasn't him. Like it seems like Clint was just tearing through these goons, and he was like going through all of the criminal elements of the world, which would include the big boss's New York thugs. And he seems sad about it. Like, he seems sorry about it, or at least like, you know, he is acknowledged. There's no point where he's like, I gotta clear my name. He's like, yeah, I did that. And also, I think Echo's dad was a bad guy. Like I think Hawkeye killing him is like what you would expect to happen in that situation. He's just kind of in the line of fire because he is working for the big boss. Doesn't mean he's like a terrible person, but he's just like, you know, he's on the bad guy team. I don't know, circumstances. So Echo and the big boss both want revenge. Echo wants revenge on Ronin for what he did to her dad. The big boss wants revenge on Ronin for how he crippled the big boss's organization. Now I'm guessing, and here's where things get a little hazy, I'm guessing that the watch is a thing people know about in universe. Like at one point there was some sort of event where Ronin went out of his way to get his hands on this watch. And that was something that everyone kind of was like, oh, that's interesting. I guess this watch means something to him, but nobody could find it. And then I guess it was found in Avengers Tower, or maybe there's like a picture of Ronin just wearing the watch, whatever it is. The watch ties Ronin back to Hawkeye, or to whoever Ronin is in Echo's mind. So Echo's like, all right, we got to get that watch. So I think the big boss tells Eleanor to arrange this auction with the watch, that the tracksuits will just knock over. They'll rob it. The mom, she'll look the other way because this is part of the deal. And then the big boss gets the watch, and the mom maybe gets a favor, or just, you know, because she's part of the organization, she just does this. I also think maybe the mom found the Ronin costume and was like, we'll put this into the auction because that will help draw him out. And maybe the mom was suspicious about Jack, so she's like, we'll see if Jack bids on this, because then maybe that'll tell me something. Also, I think it's insane that people don't know that Hawkeye is Ronin, because all of the Wakandans, everybody that was part of the end fight, saw Hawkeye in the Ronin costume. And yeah, there was a lot going on, but at one point he was holding the gauntlet. I'm sure someone has a picture of him just in that outfit, and I don't know, I guess that's a secret. He also just like takes the hood off in Endgame in the middle of the street after he just stabbed everybody. So like, you know, he's not doing a terrific job of hiding his identity. But either way, so the mom sets up the auction with the watch, expecting the big boss's goons, the tracksuit people, or Echo to show up, steal the watch and leave. So what's the deal with the watch? Okay. So here's my thinking about the watch. So it belonged to an agent. It seems like that's what Hawkeye says in this episode. Who could be an agent? We've you know, met most of the characters. Like we've had, you know, long relationships with like Hawkeye. We know everything about Hawkeye. Maybe it could be Jack. That would be crazy. Like what if Swordsman and Hawkeye worked together back in the day, and the watch outs Jack, who's like secretly trying to infiltrate the big boss's organization? That'd be very smart. I don't think that's it. I think what is going on, the other spy, the person that it's going out, because he also says that that person went into hiding a long time ago, got out of the game a long time ago, and that just seems like that was Laura, Hawkeye's wife, and that like Laura is just an alias because, you know, she's a spy.
Alias is a show about us.
People know the watch is important to Ronin because of what I said before, and I think like Clint went after it as Ronin, and maybe the watch, it's even as simple as like there's an inscription that's like to Clint from Laura with a big heart, and that's how people would find the watch and go, oh, Laura, Clint. And it seems like Echo has already gotten that information from the watch, so like that's important. And also Laura Barton busted out a lot of Russian. I think we've never really seen much of her outside of like talking to Hawkeye and just general mom stuff, so having her be in this scene and like being a confidant of Clint's and like working with him leads me to believe she has some field experience. So I think the watch outs her. I don't think that she is Mockingbird. In the comics, Clint has had a bunch of relationships, all of which have kind of fallen apart because he is a human car crash. But one of them was his relationship with a character named Mockingbird, Bobby Morse, who showed up in season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's very unclear if Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon or what. It's probably not, who knows. But I don't think that they're gonna make Laura that character. I think maybe they're just gonna say like she had a past, she was also in S.H.I.E.L.D. and then she wanted to get out. Her and Hawkeye fell in love or whatever. Either way, she's like kind of that character. And who knows, maybe she'll show up in the 6th episode and like do some fighting. That'd be kind of cool. But okay, so let's talk about Dad. So Dad Bishop, we know next to nothing about how he died or like what happened. We didn't even see him die. And if you don't see somebody die in TV, that means they're not dead. I have two possibilities here. The first one is that he had a fortune at one point. He was rich, got married, to the mom. Mom was working with the big boss, and maybe the mom killed him too to get access to the fortune. Like, the mom has always been mobbed up, and then she wanted Dad Bishop's money, and she kills him, takes over Bishop's security. That's fun, because I do get the feeling that she's trying to set up Jack to take the fall for the death of Armand by putting him in charge of Sloan, you know, the company that is in charge of the tracksuits. Like, I feel like we have not seen Jack have that conversation yet where he's like, I don't know anything about Sloan. I'm doing an accent, a silly accent. I'm not trying to, like, I don't want to like stereotype or anything. I just cannot, and I've asked people this, cannot figure out what that character's accent is supposed to be. I don't know if it's from France or Spain or England. It changes constantly. And in the comics, that character is doing a fake French accent because he's like from, you know, America, and he's just like, this is part of my, you know, part of my act. But in this, it's like, he does seem to be part of some, you know, wealthy family. So I don't know. It seems like he should have an accent. But whatever it is, he hasn't been confronted about it yet. He hasn't had an opportunity to say, like, I don't know what that is at all. So I feel like either mom did that herself or called the big boss and was like, use your connections to make it seem like he is in charge of the tracksuits, so then he can go down for the death of Armand because I stabbed him, and that seems like something that Jack would do. And then when people look into it, they'll be like, oh, he's dirty here too. So yeah, so she's like a Black Widow in that sense. She kills her husbands and eats them. If that's the case, I've heard people say this, she could be Madame Mask. Now, I don't think it would really make a difference, right? Like, I don't think if at the end of the episode she's like, I'm Madame Mask, it's like, okay. I guess it's kind of like Kang, but at least with this, it's like nothing would change at all. The story wouldn't change in any meaningful way, except for maybe that like she's some sort of undercover Russian agent, but that really doesn't matter. I say Madame Mask because female villain that hasn't really done anything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe yet. Yes, a character that is similar to Madame Mask, if not directly. I haven't watched season 2 of Agent Carter, but I believe a Madame Mask-like character shows up in season 2 of Agent Carter, which who knows if that's canon. Although their Jarvis shows up in Endgame, so like that's as close as any of these could come. And like maybe at some point they'll be like, oh yeah, I don't know, it's a name a bunch of people have had. But that character is like as close as Kate Bishop has to an arch nemesis. She shows up in this Matt Fraction comic. She also shows up in Kelly Thompson's Kate Bishop Hawkeye, like that Hawkeye series that followed this, where she goes to LA, starts detective agency. So, there's something there. But here's theory 2, and I kind of like this one a little bit more. So theory 2 is Dad Bishop did not die. He faked his death, and he's been working with Mom this whole time to take over the Duquesne Empire or something. Now, I was thinking before, okay, well, let's say the dad shows up in the next episode. And he's like, Kate, I've been alive the whole time, and I'm behind it all, right? If that's the case, is there any comic character that he maps to? Now, I looked at this and I was like, is there a guy? Because let's say, you call him on Madame Mask, who cares? But is there a Hawkeye villain that this could be? And it's like, really? There's not too many, honestly. Hawkeye doesn't have a lot of villains. Even if you start going into like Daredevil villains and other characters that seem like adjacent, there's not a lot there. However, so I read the Matt Fraction, the Kelly Thompson, also read a comic series by Jeff Lemire, All New Hawkeye. And in All New Hawkeye, we get a look at Kate's origin. And Kate's origin is very similar to the one we see in the beginning of episode 1, where she is in danger and Hawkeye saves her, and she's like, oh my god, he's a hero, he's great, I idolize him, right? She has that moment, but it's not a Chitauri invasion, because that's not a thing in Marvel comics, at least not to the extent that it is in Avengers. It's another mob boss, or at least supervillain, that's working with her dad, because her dad is bad in the comics, and it's a guy called the Matador. Here's my thing with Matador. Kate Bishop enemy, right? What if the dad is the Matador? And it's like, well, who cares? What is it? Just like says, I'm the Matador, and it's like, well, okay, but hear me out. So first of all, Armand gets stabbed and killed, right? And like bleeds out and leaves him to die, very much like Matadors do to bulls. What if Dad, the Matador, killed Armand? That could be something. Also, Matadors distract bulls with, red sheets, and that's how they get the bulls to charge, and then they go after him, right? In the first episode, Mom Bishop was wearing that red dress that pretty much just looks like a big red sheet, and she was also like, Kate, where's your red dress? Listen, it's a very small connection. It's probably nothing, but if they did want to work that dad into something and give him some sort of like gimmick or something we could work with, Matador works for him. I don't know. Something I haven't heard anybody put together before, probably because it's so stupid. stupid. And I'll leave you with this. I think I can kind of figure out how this information is going to be revealed to the audience. And it's going to come near the end of episode 5. I think Kate is going to confront Jack. She's going to say something about the Sloan Corporation, the tracksuits, and say like, you killed Armand, he was stabbed with a sword. And then Jack's going to say like, no, it couldn't have been me because I wasn't even there. I was somewhere else, and give her like a watertight alibi. And it's like, all right, maybe it's not him. Kate's gonna give up. She's gonna be like, wow, I'm sorry, I thought it was you. I'm out of leads. Case is too complicated for me. Kate's gonna say, well, really use another one of those candies right now. And then Jack will say, ask your mother. And Kate will say, what? Then Jack will go, she gave it to me. I've never seen them before. And then Kate will be like, bingo, mom's the one who was there at the murder. That's where things will change, and maybe we'll see the mom talking to the big boss in person, and that'll be the big reveal, maybe like with Echo around. And yeah, I think that's how Hawkeye's gonna end. I really do. Like, that's not gonna be the end, but I think that's what's going on with Hawkeye. I think that explains the suit. I think that explains Echo. I think that explains the tracksuits. I think that explains the watch. I think it explains the big boss, the Ronin connection, what's going on with Armand, what's going on with Jack. So I think in the org chart, it goes big boss at the top, and then right under him and like an enforcer of the tracksuits, that's Echo, and she is doing her own thing. Underneath her, all the tracksuit guys. I think Mom, Eleanor, is like a separate arm. I don't think she's connected to Echo and the tracksuits really that much at all. I think she's like, Echo and the tracksuits are in operations, and then Mom is in finance. She's in a completely different sector of the industry. So yeah, that's what I think's happening. Like I said, this is the end of episode 4. So after episode 5, this might all be wrong. And then I'll put something at after the title of the video that says like parentheses, I was wrong. And maybe change the thumbnail to be like, but I was close, or something like that. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but I think if that's what's happening, it ties both storylines together in a pretty satisfying way. The Kate and Armand and Mom storyline, and then the Clint and Ronin and Echo storyline. They're both together if Echo and Mom are both working for some sort of big giant boss refrigerator man. Also, no sponsor for this video. This is like a quick one that I just kind of threw together, but real quick, please listen to this. So as far as merch goes, I have a pin you can buy, I have stickers you can buy. They're terrific, and I have the logo, so I was like, oh, I'll put those out if people want them, and I wanted them myself. But I've been working on figuring out some sort of other fun piece of merch that you guys would enjoy. So on the Nando V Movie store right now, you can buy these official Nando V Movies bookmarks. They are bookmarks that just say one small change can make a big difference, which is, as close as I have to a like a tagline. And then the back of them is blue with the logo. You have no idea how much time I spent getting different versions of these printed with hole puncher, and just like I tried a bunch of different things, and I'm really happy with the way they came out. And like the strength is big. They're very durable. They're not like, just pieces of paper. And if you buy these now, they might be there before Christmas, but like they'll definitely be there in the new year, where maybe one of your New Year's resolutions is read more books, or like mine was read more comic books, which like, man, have I been doing. But like, if you're like me, you have the app on your phone to read books, and then you also have like a few volumes on your bedside table that you read before bed. And like this one here, like I've got Die Volume 4 by Kieran Gillen, which I really like. Nice little bookmark, goes right in the middle. So it's really having a nice bookmark that you like, maybe a couple nice bookmarks. It's pretty cool. I try not to ask you for too much. These I really like these. So please go to the Nando V Movie store if you got a couple extra bucks. If you want, buy some bookmarks because they're cool, and keep reading because reading comics is great, and reading books is great, and reading, I guess, manuscripts. I don't know what else there is. Screenplays is great. Having bookmarks is great. Also, I've got to thank all my patrons. You guys are terrific. I love you. Thank you so much for continuing to support the channel. Also, want to thank everybody that listens to my podcast, mostly Nitpicking, and anybody who follows me on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, all that stuff. I'm Nando V Movies on all those platforms. That's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you next time.